Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Always a delight to have in the studio with us John Mittendorf. He's kind of our staff researcher. He's an apologist. He worked with Answers in Genesis. We've done numerous series. The last one we just did, John, about where is the United States in Bible prophecy and end time. Fascinating. You're getting hits for notes from all over the world, I guess, huh? Yeah, and
it's interesting that we've developed quite an audience just for the notes, and I get requests now every day for notes from people I evidently have seen it on Roku or whatever, you know, weeks after the program aired, and then here somebody says, could I get the notes from the Third Temple or, you know, whatever. So, yeah, no problem.
Anyway, all the notes that we do with John at a special places, and you can email John at hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com, and he'll send you the notes, and even on the topic that we're going to kind of delve into a little bit today. But one of the news items that we've been tracking, John, is, and of course it all started this week when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came to the joint session of Congress and gave his speech. It was primarily it was his attempt to derail the proposed agreement between the United States and Iran right now. And I thought he did an excellent job communicating. And of course, he got heavily criticized for it. But nonetheless, he did point out the flaws of the deal.
Right, he did.
And one of the flaws of the deal is no matter what they agree to, it goes away in 10 years.
It goes away in 10 years, and Iran also has the capability to either stay with it or back out of it any time they want.
Yeah, so what kind of a deal is this?
Yeah, what kind of a deal is that?
So.
But out of that, when I watched that, and this came out of the series that I've done in the past on Ezekiel 38, and of course the Arab and the Islamic countries have a lot to do with that. And I thought, you know, there's a concept that I haven't heard anybody talk about yet, and that is the Arabic word. If I pronounce it right, it's either Hudna or Hudna, H-U-D-A.
Okay.
N-A, H-U-D-N-A. And this is what that means. Now, I want you to connect the dots here. Okay. This is an Arabic word. It's a tactical ceasefire that allows the Arabs to rebuild their terrorist infrastructure in order to be more effective when the ceasefire is over. It cannot last more than
10 years.
10 years.
All right. Now, is that in the actual language, or is that in their language? I mean, is that in the language of the proposed agreement, or is that their interpretation?
I took that definition right out of the Arabic.
Okay.
That is a quote.
All right. And the other thing is that, and we've known this, but, you know, it's nice to see somebody of stature really pounce on it. But Greta Van Susteren yesterday on her show basically came unglued and waved the Constitution in front of the nose of the President and the State Department. You guys can negotiate this all day long, but it takes a super majority of the Senate to ratify a treaty, and yet the President and John Kerry are moving on as if that little clause isn't there, and whatever they negotiate is going to be the done deal. Not so.
Right.
And especially with what you just said.
Right. And so another definition of that is if I'm Arabic, let's say you're American, I can look at you and I can lie to you for the express purpose of my benefit.
Yeah.
So in the verse, yes means yes, might mean no, it might mean whatever. It all depends how I want to use it. So.
Well, and I think that's the part of the culture and their religious belief system that we just ignore.
Yeah, that's the country you're going to make a deal with, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. and have them stand with it.
And have them stand with it.
Well, I go on. I ask one simple question, and I have yet to get a good answer to it. I mean, I should say I've had a lot of answers to it. I guess they're all good. But here's the question. What is it about President Obama and his administration that wants Iran to have any nuclear capability?
Can I tackle that from my perspective just for a minute?
Yeah, this is the John Mittendorf.
This is the John
Mittendorf answer my question. What is it that President Obama and the Obama administration wants Iran to have any nuclear capability?
I think Dinesh D'Souza makes a very good case for what I'm going to say.
Okay.
In that, if you read Barack's book, Dreams from My Father, his father was an anti-colonialist.
Okay.
And a lot of people think that President Obama is an anti-colonialist also.
Right.
He's been brought up in an atmosphere of America is the aggressor around the world, slavery. I mean, the list can just go on and on and on. You can look at all the negatives that you want. but he does not believe, this is according to Dinesh, does not believe that America should be the aggressive superpower of the world today and the playing field should be leveled. And then particularly when you look at President Obama's friends before his election, which would be Bill Ayers, Bernadette Dorn, and the list goes on. Yeah. He sat in Jeremiah's Right church for 20 years and listened to anti-Americanism for 20 years, and, quote, never heard it, right? Yeah, huh. So when you look at the background, when you start to put all the ducks in a row, it is very possible, and plus he is a Muslim, he is not a Christian. All you have to do is go on and Google Obama admits he is a Muslim, and he does that in front of CNN and the United Nations, and is proud of it. I mean, that's okay. But when you look at the background and where he's come from, and Dinesh makes a very, very good case that he wants to level the playing field globally, and if Iran were to get the nuke, that is going to neutralize who in the Mideast? Israel. Yeah. Israel. It also puts a major squeeze on the United States because now they're trying to develop their ICBM so they can deliver a nuke anywhere in the world. Which,
by the way, the ICBM is not a part of the proposed negotiation.
It is not a part, so they're willing to go ahead and develop that. That's right.
Amazing. So, well, we could get off all day long on this.
Yeah, we've been there, done that.
There's an answer. All right.
You're right.
This is an interesting topic. Should Christians go green? And let me just
before we get into that, just for a second, let me just real quick say that this Sunday at Valley Bible Fellowship, that's March 8th, and that's on 616 South Pacific and Talent.
Okay.
That's Valley Bible Fellowship. I'm doing a seminar in the morning and the evening. That's 10:45 in the morning. We're going to be talking about the sufficiency of Genesis in the creation account in Genesis. In other words, basically what I'm talking about is Genesis sufficient, or does it need science to fill in the gaps?
Okay.
All right?
That is the core of the creation.
That is the core.
Of the creation.
Is Genesis sufficient,
evolution,
or does it need science? And then at 6 o'clock in the evening, we're going to be talking about evolution versus creation. I do not believe that you should talk about evolution and creation and all the rest of scientific stuff until you either believe or you don't believe that Genesis means what it says and it's 100% accurate.
Okay, that is the foundation of that whole discussion.
Yeah.
By the way, don't forget this weekend you'll be turning your clocks ahead.
That is absolutely correct.
Set your clock ahead 1 hour so you don't miss John at the Bible. What is the Bible?
That's the Valley Bible Fellowship, and that's on 6. It's right below Ashland as you're coming into Talent.
Right.
And by the way, this is a note cornucopia this morning.
Okay.
Because I know we have a lot of people that are watching that probably aren't from this area. I want to make the notes available for that program, which we did 3 years ago.
Oh.
That's the sufficiency of the Genesis account of creation. And if people want to email me, those are 15 pages for the notes. Yeah. I'll be happy to send you the notes on that program.
The sufficiency, excuse me, of the Genesis account of creation. Again, go to hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com and ask for the notes on that. Ask for the notes of what we just did, Where's America and Bible Prophecy, and the notes that we're about to tackle. All right, John, yesterday Janet Parshall tackled this, and she did a wonderful job with a series of guests. The whole issue of global warming,
climate change,
environmentalism,
environment, eco-evangelism, I mean, the list just goes on.
And on. Now, here's the struggle. We are to be good stewards. Stewardship of the environment, stewardship of creation. And yet it's turned into a religion in some ways. Some would call it, their salvation. This thing is really, really interesting. And now a lot of Christians are saying, well, wait a minute, we should maybe hop on this bandwagon.
Right.
You admitted as we decided to take on this topic, it actually was a whole lot deeper than you thought.
Boy, when we did our program, the last program, which is Where is America in Future World Events,
right,
we basically talked about how America in 2015 is poised at the doorstep to become the world leader in energy, oil, natural gas, and we already are in coal, no problem there. But Obama is an environmentalist, but he's also been, I'm going to use the word hijacked, or let's just say convinced by the environmentalists to get rid of all that, veto the Keystone Pipeline, and the list goes on, and which continues to make us more dependable for energy from the Mideast, And so I thought, well, I'd just do a little tag program on that and just talk about environmentalism and you know, how are they influencing so much today. In fact, on your news spot this morning, Carrie, mentioned that, and then also Tony Perkins in his spot this morning mentioned it also. And so it seems like you hear that more and more and more. I thought, well, I'll just talk about a little bit about that. And I got into it and I thought, what have I been missing? I mean, this, it's almost like a bottomless pit. Right. You know, but the thing that surprised me the most, Perry, because last year we did a program on climate change and global warming. Mm-hmm. In fact, the notes for this program, I'm also going to attach the notes from that program also, and that was back on March 10th, 2014. And there's about 7 or 8 pages on that one. But I thought, you know, what really surprised me was the fact that environmentalists have hopped on the environmentalism bandwagon also. I mean, to a large degree. And so I thought you hit the nail right on the head when you say, what is the balance between minimizing or maximizing our resources from a biblical standpoint, but then not going overboard on it? And I say that because I think when you get into the subject, it's apparent that Mother Earth has reached the point of being a deity and a religion.
All right, we got to take a break. We're going to dive into this, and it'll probably set us off on a series.
Well, it has already.
Yeah, there's no way we're going to get through this today. Yeah. And again, let me just let you know that any of these things that John and I have discussed in the past and where we are even with this current series, you can email him at hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com, and he'll be glad to send you back the file of those various notes. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we'll get into it.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back with John Mittendorf, and we're going to take on this topic, should Christians go green? And this will be a fascinating discussion, but I think we'd better have a few moments here of doing our glossary work.
Yeah.
let's deal with some terms so that we're on the same page. I don't know where you want to start.
Well, as I mentioned with these notes, I'm also going to attach the notes from the program that we did last year on global warming, climate change, so no need to go over that again. But there's one thing that I do want to go over, and that's the definition of global warming and climate change, because you hear those terms interchangeably. Right. And it's correct, but it's not really correct. Are they from the same teapot? Yes, they are, but do they mean different things? Yes, they do. And this is basically the definition between the two. Global warming: a clear and continuing rise in the average temperature of the Earth's climate. And that's basically what the global warmers are saying, that the temperature of the Earth is slowly increasing due to human causes. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we have these weather patterns, the East Coast as an example, the ice sheets are melting, and so on and so on. We have animal species that are going extinct, and, you know, and the list goes on. So that's global warming. Then we have climate change, and it's interesting that global warming was kind of the buzzword up till 2009. In 2009, you had ClimateGate 1.0, and that's when emails were discovered from the global warming community that focused on the fact that a lot of their scientific data, their modeling, was bogus.
Was flawed, yeah.
And then, as we were talking about during the break, there's also a ClimateGate 2.0, which happened in 2011, 2 years later. That didn't really make the news because it was the same thing. In other words, they discovered more information, that their information is even more bogus and more focused on trying to drive their viewpoint, their global viewpoint. So then...
By the way, the Weather Channel got tied up in this controversy.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because some of their chief meteorologists left because they were being forced to go with the political correctness.
The PC.
Yeah,
right.
So they've had their issues there, too.
So interestingly, after 2009, global warming kind of took a back seat, and climate change then took the front seat.
Right.
So basically what you hear today is more of a focus on climate change, but you'll still hear global warming, and both terms are kind of thrown around. So global warming is a clear and continuing rise in the average temperature of the Earth's climate. That's pretty much what they say is happening today. But climate change, now this is different, is a significant lasting change in the statistical distribution of weather patterns over long periods of time. Therefore, what's happening on the East Coast today does not qualify. Does not. It's not a long. It's a cyclical process. They have a heavy snowfall this year. Next year, you might not have any. Well, that's to them. That's climate change. I mean, look what's happening last year. Look what's happening this year. That's not. It's not something that's happening over long periods of time. In fact, if you look at the Earth's temperature since the last ice age, it hasn't varied much more than 2 degrees. That's not a significant difference. Not a significant difference. So I just wanted to use those and define those two terms, because we're going to be using those two terms during this discussion we're going to have. And there is a difference between the two.
Why is this important for the Christian community? What's happening within our own ranks that this now is becoming a dividing point?
I primarily want to get to that, our next program, which is going to be on March 24th. And today I just wanted to cover the secular viewpoint to kind of build a foundation. But to answer your question, it's because it's becoming very popular, it's in vogue, and I think it's, some people view it as helpful to be on the podium of Protect Mother Earth. And a lot of people are using Genesis 1:28 as a starting point. And Genesis 1:28 is where God gives Adam and Eve control over the earth to use it for their benefit. Well, what's the definition of using it for your benefit? See, and we'll get into that the next program. So I titled this program, Should Christians Go Green? And the definition of that is, well, how far do you want to go, basically? And when I look at it, you see terms all over, such as the environment, carbon footprint, global warming, overpopulation, eco-friendly, climate change. And a term that is becoming more prevalent today, particularly in church, is eco-evangelism. What does that mean? And we'll cover that the next program. And as I said, those terms are becoming more ordinary, so when you hear them, you don't think anything about it because, well, yeah, I've heard it, and that's what's common today. But when you think about it, Perry, I think basically what you're talking about, and I wrote a whole list down, but I'm not going to read them all. You're basically talking about a steady and increasing focus on climate change globally, a shift from non-sustainable to sustainable energy resources. And that's basically where President Obama is today. He wants to minimize this country's production of oil, natural gas, and coal in the interest of sustainable resources. Sustainable resources would be wind, solar, geothermal, and that's not all bad.
No.
There are some positives. We now have Earth Day, which is a global recognized holiday, which is April 22nd, 2015 for this year, just in case you were interested. Of course, you've heard about the depletion of the ozone layer, and the list just goes on. But I think basically when you boil all of that down, you come to what I would classify as the perception of Earth in the balance, or the plight of the planet Earth. And basically, is planet Earth really on a tipping point? Is basically what we're asking from an environmentalist viewpoint. And to answer that question is probably going to take us a couple sessions. But one of the things that you have to realize is that once man, Adam and Eve, sinned, God cursed the universe. And so the universe and this earth has been in a constant state of increasing disarray ever since then.
And decay.
Decay. Exactly right. Exactly right. So
are we accelerating that with our management?
Are we accelerating that with our management is exactly right. So we'll get into that just a little bit. Yeah. But I just wanted to throw out something. How much longer do we have before our next break?
You got a couple minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, a couple minutes. I just want to talk basically about some of the inroads that environmentalism has made that I think people aren't aware of. If you go buy a new car today, you'll see a sticker on the windshield. What's the carbon footprint of this car? What's the carbon emissions of it? But from my perspective, being in the fire service, the typical new house that is built today is a firefighter killer. and it's becoming even more so. And I say that because if you go on Google and you Google in Bigwood, Chicago, that is a concept in Chicago right now, which is a mixed-use university in Chicago's South Loop neighborhood that will have high-rises, a mall, a shopping center, condos, apartments, and the list goes on, all made out of wood. No concrete, no steel. The building industry today is poised to replace concrete and steel because it has too much of a carbon footprint with wood, which is LVL, laminated veneer lumber.
Well, hello, Oregon.
Hello, Oregon.
What are we going to do with this?
If you go on the website, well, we're not cutting trees anymore, right?
Well,
that's the problem.
hello.
Yeah. If you go on the website, this is what it says. The advertised advantages are based on the familiar green terminology of sequestering pollutants from our cities, reducing man-made carbon emissions, minimizing high energy production and recycle costs, reducing the building industry's excesses, that's astronomical carbon emissions, planting trees. The project will extract toxins from the soil as well as reduce carbon dioxide from Chicago's air, and the list just goes on. Now, when you look at that, how can you really get on the bandwagon to say, well, you know, that doesn't work or that's not a good deal, because you're saying basically this is going to help clean up the environment. So to a large degree, there's a huge positive on your side if you want to advance environmentalism, because you're saying, let's clean it. And you know, when you look at the United States, Perry, from an environmental standpoint, is America cleaner today than we were 100 years ago? Air, water, and foods.
Than 100 years ago? Well, I would say we went from good to bad back to good.
Okay, correct. So 100 years ago, you go back to the 1800s and all the mills were dumping stuff in the rivers. You have all the smokestacks and all the pollutants in the air. You have food with carcinogens and all that stuff. And today, I think on the positive side of the environmental focus, there's a lot of positives there. Some of the positives are we really, have we been successful in cleaning up the environment?
Absolutely.
And the answer is absolutely.
Absolutely. In fact, and it continues to be. And I think that's a good thing. I'm not fighting that one at all. The question I have is, why isn't there more of an effort like in Beijing? Why aren't we going after some more of nuclear control, which is incredible pollution?
Right.
And we just passed the carbon bill in the state of Oregon. Now, it hasn't been signed by the governor yet, which could add 19 cents per gallon.
Right.
I mean, at what point in America we have done all the right things and now we're punishing ourselves by we're turning it into an industry that makes a lot of money?
Well, one of the things that I want to cover when we get together in our next program is I want to look at the biblical perspective on this, and what's the biblical view of global warming, climate change.
Is there one?
Yes, there is. There's going to be on March 24th. How about this one? Is Mother Earth biblical? You have to stop and think about that one.
I have to stop and think about it. I tell you where it's not biblical.
Okay.
She's not God.
Exactly right. When Mother Earth and when animals are placed ahead of humans, because we'll get to it in more detail our next program, but you start right off with Genesis 1:28. God gave this earth to Adam and Eve. He put them at the top of the pinnacle of ecology and nature and this planet, not the other way around.
Well, folks, this is the longest intro in history, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back and continue with the intro of what we're going to talk about someday. Right. We'll be right back with John Mittendorf.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us. or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and John Mittendorf's with us, and we probably should leave the cameras rolling during our breaks, so the discussions are pretty interesting.
One thing I want to mention on these notes, did you notice that I took my name off and your name only is just on there?
Why? No, you got periods on there.
Oh, I'll fix that when I get home.
Don't leave me on it. What's the deal there? Anyway, should Christians go green? If you want any of these notes of today's session or previous ones, go to hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com. And we're laying down a foundation for a very interesting discussion about whether or not Christians should go green. What's the balance here? What's stewardship, conservation, going too far, worshiping Mother Earth? Where is the balance in all of this? And so I don't know where we pick it up here, but the movement, the green movement has had huge impact around the world, but in particular, the United States has cleaned up its act, no question about it, but it's like we want to stop. We didn't find the balance here. Where do they want to go? What's the ultimate? Do they all want us in a box?
Right.
What's the deal?
And then when you look at, let's say, India and China, everything that we do, in fact, when they had the Olympics in China, China had to clean up their atmosphere, which they did to a degree, and then after the Olympics, they were right back where they were before.
You look at pictures of Beijing, and you can't see across the street.
Right, you cannot do it.
In fact, it reminded me of the old days of L.A., and today L.A. has improved significantly.
Significantly is correct. So there are some benefits, but let's pick it up. And let's talk about, just briefly, some common secular terminologies, just briefly, and then I want to talk about the history of where this came from. And I think that'll give us a good overview of basically what we're talking about. I don't want to go over all the terminologies because I've got a whole page of them in the notes, but just environmentalism, as an example, is a broad philosophy of environmental protection, improvement of the health of the environment. That's okay, I can go for that. And the color is green, which is one of the 7 colors of the rainbow, which is much, much more today. Anti-environmentalism, of course, opposes environmentalism and believes that the earth is less fragile than what it really is. Radical environmentalism, boy, I'll tell you, there's a whole subject right in itself, is basically a grassroots frustration of mainstream environmentalism that they haven't been radical, forceful, aggressive enough in changing things. And in that movement, you'll see organizations such as Earth First, Greenpeace, Earth Liberation Front, Earth Liberation Army, and so on. You know what you've heard of before. The 3 primary branches of radical environmentalism are the Greens. Have you ever heard of watermelon environmentalism?
Watermelon.
Watermelon environmentalism.
I wonder if Hermiston, Oregon has. That's where they grow watermelons.
Green on the outside, red on the inside.
Oh.
Leftist socialist is basically the foundation of radical environmentalism. Anyway, the Greens, the deep ecologists, that's because they think a lot deeper than everybody else, and the animal rights movement. And the animal rights movement basically says that we're all the same, animals and humans. One isn't above the other. Spotted owl would be a classic example. Okay?
Stubby-nosed sucker.
Yeah. Green politics, you know, when you look at their definitions, green politics, as an example, aims to create an ecologically sustainable society rooted in environmentalism. Okay, but they're also concerned with civil liberties, social justice, and they support progressivism. So
is that primarily a United States thing?
That's globally. But probably focused on the United States, yeah, because we're the leader in the movement.
We're the testing ground.
And we're the testing grounds, exactly right. We have Al Gore.
Yeah.
Yeah, see?
Isn't that nice?
Okay.
All right.
The Green Party basically was founded in 1984. Does the name Ralph Nader ring a bell?
Yeah, isn't that something?
That's basically where that came from.
Wow.
Animal rights movement, we talked about that. They believe that humans and non-human animals are all on the same plate. Eco, you're starting to hear the term eco a lot. If you go buy a Ford truck, as an example, you get the new Eco V6. Chevy also has the new Eco line of engines. And basically, eco is basically a prefix mostly referring to ecological environmental terms. And so they throw all this terminology around.
But doesn't that mean it's burning cleaner? Is that basically what it means? It's burning the fuel cleaner?
Supposed to mean that, yes.
Okay.
But does it really?
I don't know. I'm hoping that it's true, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the answer is yes and no. We won't go into automotive stuff, but whatever. Eco-liberation, I found this one very, very interesting. Eco-liberation is broadly defined as the process of setting our home, that's Earth, free from its shackles. What's its shackles? Mankind. Because we're destroying Mother Earth. Okay? And it's supported by Earth First organization. And then, of course, lastly, you have Earth in the Balance, which is the 1992 book by Al Gore, and then you have An Inconvenient Truth, which was the movie that was made on his slideshow that he was taking globally. So with that, let me shift gears and take you to just a quick summary of the secular green movement so you can kind of see where it came from and how it got going. And if we go back to the late 19th century, I think you'll probably remember the names of Henry David Thoreau, John Muir, Sierra Club, and the establishment of the national parks. Yellowstone was the first one. Of course, that was under Roosevelt. That's pretty much where it got its feet and got going. Slowly, but surely. And then the early 20th century.
Can I make a point there?
Sure.
John Muir, Sierra Club, national parks, Roosevelt, Yellowstone. Are you saying that, because weren't those based on conservation, not necessarily on extreme environmentalism?
No, we're getting to extreme environmentalism, but if you take extreme environmentalism, you have to go back to just protecting the environment, which was more of a conservative approach. But then as we go through time, you're going to see that the conservative approach started to branch off, and then you started getting these radical factions want to take it to their benefit.
Because the conservative approach was conservation.
Right.
And then when it became politicized is when it became...
There you go.
Okay.
Good clarity. In fact, John Muir, great guy. Great guy, the Sierra Club originally, great establishment of the national parks, outstanding. And Yellowstone was the first.
It's one of our jewels.
Yeah,
So
fabulous.
Lake.
Fabulous, Okay, then we go to the early 20th century. Then we had the start of the Wilderness Society, the Nature Conservancy, and the passing of the Federal Water Pollution, Air, and Pollution Control Act. Good also. Good also. Then comes 1962. Now we're going to branch a little bit. And as I said, we have the conservative branch, and now we're going to start branching off with the radical movement, or the arm. In 1962, the book Silent Spring was published, and it was by Rachel Carson. And in that book, she chronicled and highlighted the detrimental effects on the environment by the indiscriminate use of pesticides, DDT. And it's been estimated that since DDT was outlawed, it's cost 50 million lives because of malaria and all the diseases that just took off.
Wow. That's quite a statement.
It is. And I checked that out, and that's fairly accurate.
Wow.
50 million lives.
Wow.
Okay? So I'm going to say that if you look at the environmental movement, okay, positive, 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 and then came 1962, and then people are going, wait just a minute. We have some things here that are starting to degrade the earth and take us down a path we don't want to go, away from just making national parks and trails in the high Sierras and so on. Then after 1962, legislation quickly followed with the Clean Air and Water Act, Endangered Species Act, Toxic Substance Control Act, and so on. Okay? Then in 1985, Nature magazine published an article providing their evidence, let me repeat that, their evidence of an ozone layer, an ozone hole over the Antarctic, and you probably remember that.
Yeah, then that really accelerated the argument.
And I'm going to say...
because it was the holes in the ozone that really got everybody going.
And this is why I put your name only. I'm going to put your name only on the notes and take mine off.
I'll give out your personal phone number.
No, wait a minute. No, I'm just going to say, if you look at it from a common sense perspective, that you have conservative environmentalism, okay, going this way, positive, 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 and then you have 1962, the book. People start thinking, wait a minute, you know, we got some problems in here. And then we have the ozone layer, people going, wait a minute, what's causing the ozone layer? Well, it's got to be man. Yeah. Well, okay, and then I'm going to say the radical movement on the end of the table, it just fell off, and you know, now it's a linear progression going downwards from the radical movement side of it. So, the magazine published 1985, providing their evidence of an ozone hole over the Antarctic, and then as a result, Congress was warned about the consequences of global warming and a depleting ozone layer in 1988, and out of that, see if this rings a bell. They established the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That's 1988, and there you go. Okay?
That's the beginning of Clinton, isn't it?
Close.
So you had Reagan, Clinton. Yeah.
Then, by 1990, 76% of Americans will call themselves environmentalists. And you know, when you stop and think about it, Perry, well, let me cover one more thing. I had 5 points I wanted to make on this, on the radical arm branching off and really starting to pick up some muscle. And then number 4 was by 1990, 76% of Americans call themselves environmentalists, and there's a reason for that. But number 5, United States Vice President Al Gore's campaign to educate citizens about global warming. That was his movie. And not his movie, they published a movie on his slideshow. And that film raised the international public awareness of climate change and re-energized the environmental movement.
All right, got to take another break. Fascinating. Okay. I hope you are taking this in, because we're not going to get it all done today. No. And I want people to know that we're trying our best to give you good solid grounds for this argument. And where the overreach could impact you. You know, I'm thinking, why aren't we doing more solar? Why aren't we doing more wind power? You know, and even that's getting shut down.
Yes, it is.
When it's clean energy.
And nobody wants a windmill in their backyard.
Yeah, but boy, well, anyway, that can get me going. Let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. If you want these notes, go to hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, welcome back. Fascinating discussion today with John Mittendorf, and we're just laying the foundation down for a series, Should Christians Go Green? This is a huge topic.
Boys
and I got to tell you, you're probably hearing some things you want to say, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but. We're going to deal with the yeah, but parts of it later on. We just can't get to all of it today. But we are laying down a foundation on how this thing blossomed into what it is today. Because I think the intentions originally, clear back to President Roosevelt, maybe even before then, was good. It was conservation.
It was conservation.
And it evolved into now extreme environmentalism. And in some cases, in fact, in a lot of cases, that has turned into a religion. It is, in some people, even in modern cultures, it is their God.
Right.
It is their religion.
What's happened is they've taken Mother Earth, the environment, and placed it above God, and everything falls below that. In fact, when you say now from the animal rights movement that animals are equal to man, and yes, you want to protect animals to the best of your ability, but they do not take preference over man.
Well, and I think that even politically on the right, we have a tendency to go too far. And what I mean by that is that we politicized everything. So what is good conservation? What is good stewardship? You know, and you made a great point, John, and that is America went from good to bad back to good because we have improved our environment.
You bet we have.
Can we do more? Of course we have.
Of course we can. Yeah.
But to turn it into a complete shutdown. Where is the balance in this argument? But unfortunately, one of the things that we're trying to build towards here is it's in the church now. It's moved into the church.
Big time.
And people are having a hard time separating the creator from the creation.
There you go. There you go.
You know?
Yes.
And where do our allegiance lie here?
Right.
All right. So anyway.
Okay. I mentioned that. Are you doing good? Just keep going. So, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just,
okay.
You can take my name off these notes now.
Okay. I mentioned right before the break that by 1990, 76% of Americans call themselves environmentalists, which would probably be higher today, 2015.
Based on what?
Based on what? I'm glad you asked that question. From my perspective, two basic viewpoints. When you watch the television, when you read the paper, when you look at the magazines, when you watch Nat Geo, good programs, but when you look at that, what do you see? Constantly, constantly, constantly. Global warming, climate change. John Kerry was on the news this morning. What's he talking about? Climate change. Perkins in his little spot this morning. What's he talking about? Climate change. So you hear, and after a while, I think we become dumbed down. Okay, well, yeah, that's just part of the English language today. Yeah, there's a problem, but we're working on it. So we'll keep increasing the taxes on gasoline. Pretty soon it'll go away, right? No, it won't. The other reason, I said two things. The other reason is that when kids go to school today, they're receiving an antagonistic and prejudiced agenda that's evolution-based approach. So really it's a two-pronged approach. They start out with evolution. God isn't in the mix at all. Everything that we see today came from nothing. Bang, there it was, right? From nothing, okay? So they're looking at an environmentally evolution-based approach to environmental care, energy use, population control, food supply, and anti-God perspectives that continues with a constant echo outside of public schools from the media and Hollywood. And a classic example of Hollywood would be the film Avatar.
Yeah. There's a term there, I don't know if you caught it, and that is population control. It's subtly there, and we're dancing around it.
The world is being overpopulated, the food supply is going along, so Earth is on a tipping point. A tipping point means that once we tip, we can't come back and restore it. And to a degree, from God's perspective, when you say a tipping point, that is correct. God is going to destroy this Earth and this universe again. And also, when He cursed it, it is running downhill. But the question is it running downhill because of man's carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere? And that's basically where the climate change people are coming from.
Wow.
A lot of stuff there, isn't there?
Well, the indoctrination of our kids in the schools, because now you have Earth Day in April, and coupled with evolution being taught, really sets the scenario up. You can see where this is going. I made a statement to you earlier, and it's based upon a conversation I had with a psychologist sitting on an airplane. But when you look at this environmental movement, the extreme part of it, you look at the indoctrination of our kids in school through evolution.
Right.
It would appear to me that one of the arguments that I'm hearing now in the homosexual debate is a polluted DNA.
Okay.
And it's possible that the polluted DNA argument will get attached to the climate change argument, therefore it's justifiable.
And I can see that, Perry, because as our environment becomes more polluted, as the air becomes more polluted, as we breathe this, we're changing our DNA. Mutations scientifically are increasing. That is a fact.
And so the justification that if you are again born that way, as a result of a polluted DNA, which is a result of climate change.
The environment, right. So, you know, as I looked at this and I thought, you know, we talked about that a lot of the education the kids are getting today in school, whether it's grade school, high school, college, it's evolution, 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 enviro care, enviro care, enviro care. And so basically, you're turning out the next generation that's founded and based on those two basic principles, which are made for each other, because they're both anti-God.
Okay, but the terms, the statistics, 76% of Americans call themselves environmentalists. Do they know what they're saying by that? Or are they just concerned about the environment?
You know, that I don't know, because a lot of that...
Does that number get added to their arsenal as their army?
Well, I think so, if they're favorable towards it, but as you know, that if you're going to do a survey, it all depends how you slant the questions when you ask the survey. And so, but people are favorable to that viewpoint, the climate change, global warming viewpoint, 76%, which would be higher today, which would be higher today. Let me, as we come down the home stretch, talk about the three major parts of the radical environmental movement. We've already discussed the fact that environmentalism, in its beginnings and its core principles, is good. Radical environmentalism has taken off to a whole nother level. And there's three basic parts. There's the Greens, green politics, the deep ecologists, and the animal rights movement. The Greens are Greens politics. They're focused, they're politically motivated, they're progressive, they're considered left. They've also become a home for hardline socialists, and that's where the term watermelon environmentalist comes from. And by the way, that's all over the internet. That's not difficult to find. Green on the outside, red on the inside. The common agendas are global warming, ozone hole, acid rain, elimination of most forms of energy such as coal, oil, hydroelectric, nuclear, and you know, the list just goes on, Perry. The common denominator, this is in summary, is a redistribution of global wealth and a central focus for the world's economy. If I can control the world's economy, what do I control?
The environment.
The environment. Well, power. Power, right? Next, deep ecologists. The Greens, green politics is number one. Deep ecologists is number two. And they believe that all organisms are equal in inherent worth. Man, animal, it's the same. There's no difference. A human life has no more value than the life of any animal. As nature is alleged as being in decline, humans are also alleged to be the root cause or a cancer or an intruder on the environment.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can you say endangered species?
Endangered species.
Yeah.
Lastly, animal rights movement believes that all of life is equal and no form of life is superior to another. And that's where you see the keyword speciesism is within that.
And that is, that's probably the biggest rub for the Christian community right there.
Right.
Because that's not what Genesis says.
That's not what Genesis says. And so what I wanted to do this morning was just lay a basic foundation from a secular viewpoint on the two movements. First of all, how to start. You know, back in the 19th century, just basically John Muir and Sierra Club and all that, okay, fine. And then as we accelerated on, then slowly then we come up to the publishing of a book that says, you know, what we're doing on this earth from a chemical viewpoint is bad, DDT is banned. And of course then you have the ozone hole, which was a Nature magazine. And then basically after that, 1985, 1988, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And then we were off to the races with the radical viewpoint.
We're going to continue this, folks. And again, you can get these notes by going to hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com. I have less than a minute. Can you tell me how is this being propagated in the church? As what?
Well, in the church, that's evangelic. I got to think about this for a second. Evangelical environmentalism. Try to say that 10 times real fast. Yeah. And it is becoming very, very big in the church. What I want to, in our next program, which is March 24th, cover the environmental movement from a biblical standpoint. And let's go to Scripture and see what Scripture says, and then talk about how should a Christian view Mother Earth, climate change, global warming, environmentalism.
Outstanding. All right. Stick around, and we'll be continuing this on for several weeks. Again, you can go to hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com, and you can get it all right there. Thanks, John.
Valley Bible Fellowship this Sunday.
Okay, see you there.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.